the next episode of The Lair. Joining me today is one of my special guests from my MBA program. She is a two-time graduate from the University of Michigan with an undergrad in psychology and an MBA from the greatest university in the country, University of Michigan. She is the mom of a 7-year-old son and welcoming Alex Foster. Alex, welcome to The Lair.
Thanks so much for having me, Dan. How are you today?
I am amazed. It is so great to connect back with you. I really wish we had an opportunity to be in a group together. So most of the time we only got to see each other in the breaks and at lunch a couple of times, and then during some of the social events. But like Alina, one of the things that I really admire about all your comments were how much thoughtfulness went into the responses, I would say your EQ being on point always, and really that aspect of trying to just connect with people always seemed to be something, at least that's what I witnessed from you, and I always enjoyed it, and that's one of the reasons why I wish I was in a group with you, and even more so, I asked you to become a guest on my next YouTube show to help continue to educate me, and hopefully you'll get to educate some of the people out there from real people talking to real people. So
thanks for having me. I know I wish we had an opportunity to work together as well. You always are, you know what people are passionate about, it kind of jumps out at you, but the sense that you got in the program was that everybody just brought such a wealth of experience and knowledge and an eagerness to learn that you knew that whoever you were in a group with, they were going to be great. So definitely want the opportunity to connect with more people. So thank you for having me here today.
Absolutely. So you decided to go back to school.
Yeah.
What was some of the reasons why you did it? Did you have some goals for it? And of course, did you meet your goals?
Okay. Initially, when I wanted to go back, I always knew that I wanted to go back and get an MBA. I had been looking, but I wanted to work. I wanted to have some experience underneath my belt to draw on as a part of the program. So I waited a couple of years, more than a couple of years. And when I thought it was time, I was at a point in my career where I felt like I was growing, but I was stable. My son at the time when I applied, I think he was 5. And so you kind of get out of that phase where you're not missing those special moments and they're more vocal. So it was the right time. One of my key goals was to get a broader perspective on how to look at business, right? I'm in human resources, so a big part of our role is understanding the business goals for our organization, knowing how to motivate teams, but having a refined perspective about that, how to influence leaders, how to evaluate a business. I happened to be at a positive business conference the year that I applied, and U of M was on my list, of course, go blue. But I was looking at a couple of other organizations, and I said, I want to go to a different university because I went there for undergrad. So I want a different experience. I want to broaden my educational experience. And I had the opportunity to hear our dean speak, and he was talking at the conference about the impact that business has on society. And the particular topic at the time, I think it was food or something. And his challenge was, how do business leaders come together to solve the societal issues that exist? And he said, it's our responsibility. And I thought, these are my people, right? Because whatever I do in a work setting, it has to translate into things that matter to me. And most certainly as a mom, to leaving something better for my son. And that's just not what I leave him, but it's the world that exists as he grows and becomes an adult and looks for opportunities. I want it to be a better place for him. And so that was those are some of my main goals. And I think I achieved them. I met great, wonderful colleagues, as you know, such a powerful cohort. And so interesting to see how they're impacting their work, their lives, and the world even today.
I think that's great. One of the things that I always have a difficult time with, because I'm a man, I don't know what it's like to be a mom. Mm-hmm. And I asked some of my other, all of my other, guests that have been on, other than right now, are moms. How did you juggle this? What advice do you have to other women that may be thinking about doing their MBA and they have kids? You know, what can you tell them? How did you do it? I mean, it's a even more of an accomplishment than I would say for, you know, not to take away from us dads, but you know, it's a different.
It is. And I would say, whew, it was a challenge. It was difficult. I mean, there are times where you want to just be there as a mom, whether it's, you know, volunteering in class, even at times tucking them in at night, because we have group calls, right? We work, this is an executive MBA. They expect us all to work full time. And so sometimes you're meeting at 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the evening, right? So sometimes you're missing those traditions that you have as a family. But I think the thing that kept me going, again, was the role model that I was providing. There is a cute picture that we have where my son and I are studying together. You know, he's reading a book and I'm studying, and they get to know your group, our cohort members on these group calls. And so there is definitely a seed that's planted in them about the value of education and perseverance and overcoming difficult things in your life. And I would just say, if there are moms out there considering it, first of all, do it. And then just think about who's in your network, grandma and grandpa on both sides, aunts and uncles. Although as moms, we like to be there for everything, it is important for our children to have different viewpoints, different perspectives other than mom and dad, or mom and dad, whatever those combinations may be, because it adds to the richness with which they view the world. And so the one thing that I can say that I wasn't anticipating, Dan, was that as I was out of the picture some, right, going to school and studying and in meetings, he just grew leaps and bounds. And that's the amazing things about kids, is that they're resilient. And just when you think they're in situations that would take a normal person out, they find a way to come out even stronger and even better. And that has been rewarding for me to stand back and observe, having completed yay, we're done, we graduated, having just graduated.
Well, you're right. He did grow quite a bit, 40%.
Yeah,
right? So 40% of his life at that time, you only got to be there part-time. And I think probably one of the worst things that's really happened to all of us here in 2020, because, you know, I did all of my education as a working adult. So my kids got to see me graduate everywhere except with my MBA. And I absolutely agree that example that you're showing your son is priceless. And I wish, and I hope Ross still does something, but I wish he got to see you cross that stage to receive, you know, your fake diploma. But and still, you know, it's that process, because I think it does just leave an imprint on them that we should always be in pursuit of knowledge, because when you are knowledgeable, that's a power people can't take from you.
Absolutely. And appreciating the work that goes into that, right? Knowledge just doesn't, it'd be nice if we could just like pour knowledge into our head, but there's effort there. And then with knowledge comes the responsibility to do something with it, right? To think differently, to impact how others think. And so I think our kids, as they see us matriculate through these graduate programs, also learn that, because they hear a change in how we discuss things, and like, oh, this really challenged me. This was very difficult for me to learn, right? And but I'm stronger for it, and the way that I approach problems have changed, certainly. And so that's been rewarding. And I've heard some of our other cohort members talk about their kids and their growth and development as they've been in the program, and it's really fun.
It is. So, you know, I'm kind of curious now that because we transitioned our last, you know, two, you know, well, what are we going to call them? You know, residencies to online. You know, you work in HR. One of the things that I have found, because I had to help transition my employer to working from remote, that a lot of people seem to struggle with an internal structure mechanism when they had to work remote. Did you see that with where you are? If so, how did you, from an HR perspective, help to provide guidance to the workforce on how to transition to being a traditional butt and seat to now you're remote.
Well, the cool thing is, where I work today is we had an existing work from home program, and so folks today choose where they worked even before COVID. So they selected, am I going to be in the office full time? Am I going to work from home 2 days a week? And it was just about aligning with your leader and doing what's right for the business. I have colleagues I know who travel across the country in trailers, sometimes in cars, and they visit and stay with different family members in different hotels. They do what works for them. And so that was the one benefit about being in an organization who already had an existing philosophy about working kind of without bounds of a traditional office, a traditional workspace, is we were able to bounce back so quickly. But it was a little bit of an adjustment. And sometimes what you miss kind of, right, is that rubbing the elbows in the hallway, connecting with people. So you have to find different ways to facilitate that. And the good thing is that I think sharing best practices in our organization with HR colleagues outside has been key.
I think it is, and I think for those people that did have to transition from home, to give a lot of advice to my people because they weren't used to it. It was not something that we did. And what I had told them quite a bit is one, you schedule your breaks. It's different. We would get our breaks from staring at that computer screen by going to a meeting. Yeah. Now our meetings are also on a computer screen. Make sure actually limit your caffeine use, limit your sugars, because it's going to make you even more tired in these times. Eat vegetables, fruits, and drink a lot of water. And as I kept telling this, I gave them like step by step. There was like 15 steps. And like every third step, it was like drink a glass of water. And at the very end, I said, why have you drinking so much water? Because you're going to have to get up and go to the bathroom, and that's going to help provide the blood flow. Yeah. Because now you're having to get up, and it's difficult. But schedule those breaks because you are going to find yourself becoming more fatigued than normal because you just don't get those breaks.
You don't. And then there's so much that's happening just in the confines of our home, wherever that is for you, right? So you've got kids at home, most of us have a significant other at home, you're at, even my dog. I remember with the first like 2 weeks, my poor dog was exhausted. I think probably because my son loves to play with her so much, but she was just wiped out each day. So we're stimulated too in a space that, at least for me, is usually kind of the calming place. It's the place we come to get back to center, and it's just, our total space now. We can't escape the energy and the excitement. So.
What a weird time we're in of having to go from, we're already workaholics basically in the United States to some people not having a job at all or working from home, and then another tragic event happening with George Floyd. I'm curious because I have a daughter that's the same age as your son, and I'm curious as a mom, have you had to address that yet? What has been anything that's going on? What have you been having to do and talk about with your son?
It's an interesting time, and when you say the name George Floyd, even though it's going to come up, right? There's these emotions that kind of swell up about a lot of different things. Yes, to answer your question, we've talked to my son about it. Again, because we are home, right? And so maybe we would usually wait till he falls asleep to turn on the news. But as things are being announced and coming out, we have the TV on in the day, right? We would normally maybe be checking updates at work, but he's home too now, right? And so you can step back at it and look at it as an opportunity to have maybe some tough conversations. There is a little bit of comfort there because sometimes when you talk about things with a 7-year-old, they go to school the next day and you don't know what's going to be talked about at the lunch table, right? So you almost have to say, you really have to frame this up. Well, now we have a little bit of a safety net because he is home. And certainly we're at a point as a society, as a country, where these things begin to impact him. I'll tell you a little bit of a story, Dan. Last summer, my son, he wanted a toy. And as kids do, they have their toys that they want, and they're really excited about it. And his older cousin, was coming to visit, and so they wanted to go to the store and buy a toy. So I said, here's the amount, and it was a great opportunity at the time because I had to teach him. I was like, okay, it's $19.99. You have $20, so you get to pay taxes too. In Michigan, we have taxes that we pay. And so I loaned him the money to pay the taxes, and we were at the checkout lane, and I remember. He was touching something at the checkout lane, and I was like, stop touching things. And not because he was fidgety as a parent or as a child, because he's an African-American male. And we're at a store, and he's touching things as a checkout. And if he doesn't buy it, right, then in some instances, people will say, what did he do? Do we need to check and see if he took it without paying for it? Did mom take it? And so I remember getting him to the car and getting him home, and I sent his cousin to play, and I'm sure he has had this similar conversation with his parents. I had to tell him, and I didn't tell him the why, but I said, look, when you go to a store and we're at the checkout register, you have to stop touching things. That is the point where you no longer touch anything. And he said, why? And I said, well, we want people to know what we purchase and what we intend to purchase. And, you know, I gave him this whole spiel, but later I remember my heart breaking because the loss of innocence that oftentimes members of the Black community face at such an early age, and being, you know, carrying the weight of that as a mother and saying, I know I need to protect my son. So I have to tell him, but I also don't want to tell him these things just yet. There's a great article, I think Cameron Welch, I think is his name, as a young man, and he talks about the roles that his mother has given him before or when he leaves home, right, as an African-American male. And so we have to talk about these things, but I do think we're at a point now, we've probably been there for a really long time, but now is a great opportunity for parents to say, how am I having conversations with my children about this? Because either I will have them with my child or the world will. So better for me to have it and give them a safe space to think, like, I can let my son form his own opinions. Certainly I have my own, but I can create the dialogue in a way that says, let's see what he thinks about it. And you know what, kids get it right. It's with a little bit of guidance, but it's a lot of heaviness.
It is, you know, I wonder, this just came to my mind, and I wonder if, because the only type of like loss of innocence I can kind of imagine for like my kids would be, you know, that first time where they're with friends or something like that, where they see pornographic material.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, that is that where for me, that's like, oh my gosh, you know, they're too young.
Right,
I mean,
right.
It's going to happen, but, you know, to experience that loss of innocence at, you know, 5, 6, 7 years old, you know, it isn't in a way, even if we are as parents over exaggerating a little bit, that's in our own world, it's happened. They just don't know it yet.
Yes.
And I think
we want to protect them from being tragic. The next one, right? If you think about someone like Tamir,
right.
As young of a child as that was, he was playing, like actually playing, and his life was taken away. So the reality is, for some people, what parents are trying to protect them from is, you know, we have enough examples that it occurs. So we have to be on the offensive. Mm-hmm.
What if, well, let's, you know, I hope this doesn't happen, but unfortunately we're decades away of whatever the next leapfrog is of removing any of the isms, racism included, but let's hopefully this doesn't happen. Let's imagine, you know, this was when your son was 14 or, you know, 12. You know, what kind of conversation, because at that point you're not able to escape the conversation of the George Floyd incident, because he's on a YouTube, he may have, you know, Instagram, you know, because I think 12 is a gauge for Instagram. I don't know, can't remember,
yeah,
but
right.
He's going to at that point. So how do you think you would talk to him then, and as a mom, what would you do?
I don't know. Lots of prayer. I'm a faith-based person, but you know what? And again, this comes back to the community too, and having different perspectives. And I really am passionate about giving him different outlets to express himself, making sure he has words. So we try, I think we heard this guidance when we were new parents, and you read all the books and all the articles about what to do and what not to do. And it was like, don't use baby words, use real words with your children so they have a language. And the one thing that I'm certain of, and we learned this in our program, right? In order to have a true dialogue about something, you have to have a language with which to have that dialogue, right? And so it's about making sure that he knows words like injustice, just as much as he knows the word justice, right? And he can talk about those things in a way that he's confident. I know that I will have to have those conversations one day. I don't know. I'm glad, I'm fortunate to have a good network. And so I'd probably be leveraging my network, whether that's family, friends, because sometimes you just don't have the words. And, I hear colleagues and friends and people who I even consider to be family say, I don't know what to say to someone today. And my only response is sometimes we don't know how to respond. Sometimes I don't have a response for how I feel. And so, giving people space and truly being empathetic. I think I heard you mention that on one of your other calls, and just stepping back and realizing that, you don't have to be so quick to make it about you, but just let that person express their thoughts and their concerns and meet them where they are. That gets you a lot further than, I would try not to have a speech for him. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I can imagine, so I reflected back as myself as a young man, and one of my best friends growing up, his name's Ray, black man. We were together all the time. I mean, we had basketball, go to the clubs, you name it. We were together, and we got into an argument one day, and we were talking about, hey, you could be, walking along the street, and a cop just pulls you over and starts doing this. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I mean, we learned, I know about my constitutional rights, blah, 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 but I didn't realize that, and neither one of us had emotional maturity to really be understanding that he was talking about it from being a black guy, and I'm doing it from being white, but neither one of us, at least at that point in time, we weren't emotionally mature enough to know that he was talking about it from there, and I'm arguing the law, the constitutional rights, and you haven't done anything. They can't just stop you and just do this because you're walking home, and that aspect. And I was just reminded of this during all these things, and I reached out to Ray, on social media recently. I remember this. I don't know if you do, but I do. And he's like, yeah, because those things are just what made us stronger as friends growing up, and we were able to get through those things. But I was lucky myself to be raised that the color of your skin is not what provides value. And I just hope that I hope all of my kids continue doing that. I think so, just because I know who their friends are. It's a very eclectic group of people from all walks of life, that it seems like to me at their age. And I just, even still trying to talk to my 14-year-old about this, just how he's feeling. All he said was sadness. He just feels sadness about these events, and I don't know what else to say to him yet, other than, well, talk to me, text me, whatever you need to kind of help work through this.
Yeah, and I definitely think having an open door is important. And keep in mind too that kids, whatever age they are, parents are extremely important. Do not get me wrong. I know my value as a parent, but I also know the value in various safe spaces that my son has, whether that's school, and teachers and friends and counselors, and people who skilled at identifying, gaps with children, or church. Again, people who work with people across a multitude of life experiences and have different interactions, grandparents, family. I mean, so these safe spaces that our kids would normally have to go and discuss things about the situation, like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, those safe spaces are different. And so we have to make sure that we facilitate that. And so a couple weeks ago, it was my mom's birthday, and we all, my siblings and I, to the extent that our schedules allowed, jumped on a call with her at the same time. And at one point, my son grabs the laptop and he is like gone to his room for 30 minutes. And, he just wants that space, right? To be him and express his thoughts. And I think he was sharing toys and books at that point, but that was still his space. And so I think something that parents probably need to think about during this time is what safe spaces our children have that aren't always mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, or whomever, so that they can express who they are and learn and grow and observe the world from their own vantage point.
I think that's the only way they're going to be able to grow. I mean, it's our responsibility as parents and trusted advisors to maybe other children as well, is to help them grow in a positive way. Mm-hmm. And that is probably the hardest thing for any adult to do. I was having a conversation with an associate last night after dinner, and he was explaining his experience with his children in the Boy Scouts and what the Boy Scouts are supposed to be, which helping young men lead other men and growing in that aspect. And his oldest son has just become an Eagle Scout, and what that means. And I think it's important because it's difficult. Sports are great to help you with an aspect of teamwork, but it doesn't really help you to be a leader and other than through practice, okay, hey, we got to do this, you're the first on the field, blah 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 blah, but not leading through difficult times and of stress. And it was interesting the way he was talking about the Boy Scouts and his experience. I'm like, I wish I had something more like that growing up. I didn't participate. I was always in the sports time. But I think it's a really difficult thing for all of us parents and leaders. I mean, the big thing for me about going to University of Michigan and Ross's Business School was I wanted to make an impact on the world, and in a positive way. I continue to do that. So, Alex, this has been great talking with you. Now, I don't know if you finished any of the episodes, but for all of my first-time guests, there's this last aspect in here, which is it's time to pay Dr. Ford. And it's what's next for you, Alex, because now this is going to be here forever. Have a goal of something. So hopefully you'll come back on and we can get a follow-up. But now the world's going to know what's the goal. So we're going to mutually hold each other accountable to whatever your next goal is.
I love it. I love it. Spoken like a true Ross alum. What's your goal? I'm holding you accountable. I think, for me, I want to continue to explore some spaces in areas that I haven't as an HR leader, or even at a deeper, more formal level. So I did commit that I wasn't going to look at any programs once I completed this one, but I did already. And I suppose I expect many of us have. And I want to explore some executive coaching at a deeper level. I have a desire to do it. I'm very passionate. We were exposed at the program to really wonderful executive coaches, and I have been throughout my career. And so we'll see. That's what I'm looking forward to doing next.
So you're thinking about becoming an executive coach?
Yes.
I think that would be amazing for you. I mean, that's probably going to be a process, and mainly because you've got a psychology background, and in human resources, and I gained a lot of perspective with our executive coaches at Ross. I had one prior to Ross, and I'm going to be missing out come June 30th. I think is when our last, able to use them. Hope maybe they'll extend it for us, but I think that would be great. It's something that, it could be an additional revenue stream for you, a lot of things. And so I think that's a great goal.
Yeah. Well, how about you,
Alex? It's been well, I have many goals, but one of them is just to continue doing the show. I'm looking to get better at this. Part of is understanding the marketing piece. I've transitioned from being a cybersecurity expert into a CIO, which is more on the business side, and eventually I want to be a CEO. Part of that is me to better understand marketing. So it was very easy because I had, from a cybersecurity piece, I had 15 plus years of people that I knew and had a great following from that. And when midway through Ross, I closed all of those social media accounts and started something fresh that was going to be organic. And but funny enough, I call myself now on Twitter Nostradamus, because I do happen to make a lot of predictions that have come true. And it's funny as to some of these things that I've just witnessed, whether it be an employee or a friend of mine asking me to basically interview someone for them, and I'm like, nope, that person's no good, and here's why. They hired them anyway, and those things that happen, I'm like, there it is. Or my buddy Jason, who I went through the doctorate program together with years ago, because he was moving to North Carolina. I told people, yeah, he's moving to North Carolina because he wants to be a chicken farmer. Well, he's now been in North Carolina for 3 or 4 years, and he just bought 50 chickens.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, look, I'm telling you, I can see it. So that's kind of that in the avatar for this show is that crystal ball. But inside that crystal ball are all these things that have been made up of pieces of me and in my family. I'm related to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, stuff with Freemasonry, to myself personally. So all this stuff's kind of in there, and it has a little play on it. And
very cool. I think it's a great show, and I know you'll continue to interview great people, and hopefully when we look back too, we'll see kind of a different state of the nation, right? That'll be the big weight lifted off of our shoulder, although there is much work to do, and I have no doubt that our cohort members and people in our community and our networks will continue to impact and drive change. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, again, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And everyone, thanks for stopping in. Take care.